Okay, a bit of a different kind of video since this is not going to be a theory, but I would really like to talk about this little interesting topic that recently blew up about two people related by blood. Boys and girls, it's coming home. So in the last couple of chapters, Aqua and Ruby finally find out about who each was in their previous lives. And Ruby thought it was a great idea to bring up Aqua's promise as Goro to marry Sarina, now Ruby. Of course, she didn't say that to his face, but regardless, with Ruby seemingly pushing her feelings onto Aqua, it stirs some fantasies in the Oshinoko community. The incest shippers are very happy, while the rest are not really that happy. But I'm here to shatter some dreams and maybe put some of you at ease and tell you that Aqua x Ruby isn't a thing, it will not be a thing, and it cannot be a thing. Unless, of course, we got to know why. And let's start with Ruby's feelings. What kind of feelings does she have for Aqua? Now, in her previous life as Sarina, Ruby was diagnosed with a terminal illness at the age of 4. Soon after, she was hospitalized for the rest of her life and eventually abandoned by her family. This means she didn't have many experiences in life, didn't have many interactions, a faint knowledge about feelings, and so on. She didn't get to taste life. And so, her understanding of things in general was pretty limited. She was an innocent child throughout her whole life. The only person who stood by her side throughout this time was Goro. They shared happy moments, sad moments, dreamed together, made promises, and so on. And when you spend so much time with a single person, you're going to get attached. And of course, you're going to develop some sort of feelings for that person. But what kind? While it's very likely that Ruby developed something of a first love for Goro since he was the only person around, it's also about familial love. Ruby loved her mother even though she abandoned her. She yearned for her love. She denied her abandonment because otherwise she would lose it all. And Goro was there to replace that love. And so Ruby's reminder of Goro's, let's call it a promise, at the end of chapter 123 isn't tied to anything romantic. It's just Ruby wanting to have the only person she truly cares about and truly cares for her as close to her as possible. Think about it. What does Ruby know about marriage? What does she know about a romantic relationship? What does she know about the outcome of this kind of relationship? Nothing. Even in her reincarnated life, for the most part, she still remains an innocent child. These concepts are not clearly defined in her mind, which leads to a one-sided obsession of sorts. Because if we look at Aqua's feelings, all we see is familial love and support. There is no point in the story where we see Aqua, even in his life as Goro, even hinting at anything more. It's not like he goes, "Oh Sarina, you're so hot and cute, I'd marry you if it wasn't for this age gap." No. He said he would consider marrying Sarina when she turned 16 because it made her happy in the moment and she needed all the happiness she could get for what was to come. He said those words to motivate Sarina to push through her illness and hopefully make it to 16. This doesn't mean he didn't genuinely adore her. He most certainly did, as shown by how much regret and guilt he feels towards not being able to save Sarina as a doctor. But he didn't view Sarina in any other way. Also, because he couldn't save and protect Sarina, he projects that onto Ruby, hence why he's so overprotective of her. He confirmed in this panel that he saw traces of Sarina in Ruby and therefore didn't want to make the same mistake twice. So the chances of these two ending as a couple range from no chance to impossible. So far it looks like a one-sided confession that Aqua should clear up in the following chapters. Now I don't think Ruby is kidding, she is quite serious and means those words, but with how fast her mental health has been deteriorating lately, she does need Aqua to step up and clear things up. Another thing to keep in mind regarding this potential relationship is the reaction of, every other character. Miyako, Kana, Gotanda, with or without context, they wouldn't understand any of it. Just imagine the twins becoming a couple. Now imagine what that would mean for the rest of the characters. The consequences would mess up the story. On top of that, I also believe that age could be a factor, although not that important apparently. Now, of course, the twins are the same age physically, but mentally they are decades apart. Goro died at 30 and carried that maturity into his reincarnation, while Sarina died at 12 and also carried that into her reincarnation. The reason I'm saying the age isn't that important is because Aqua was fine dating Akane. Initially he did it for a reason, right, to use her pretty much, but after he gave up on his revenge, he still dated her without an ulterior motive. The scenarios are different though, because Aqua knew Sarina differently and has got a different connection to her. We can see in these panels that he acts like a father figure of sorts to Ruby, comforting and motivating her. His guilt can be mended if Ruby lives and enjoys her new life. He says it himself in these panels. Every time I saw a trace of Sarina in Ruby, I would blame myself. He couldn't forgive himself for being unable to save Sarina, and even blame himself for thinking Ruby could be Sarina, since that would be his salvation. He failed to save Sarina, but he can save Ruby. His regrets can be erased. Now let's switch our attention to this pesky crow girl, because yes, she popped up again. So she wonders if Aqua is happy now that he and Ruby have revealed their identities, as that would mean Ruby fully trusts Aqua and she would have no issue going along with his movie plan. Then she says that if Aqua likes, he could take this opportunity and maybe make Ruby fly high again. But that would be a bad move. Let's break this down a little bit. So this opportunity the crow refers to is most likely about dropping the revenge. If Aqua gives up on his revenge and chooses to spend his life together with Ruby, not necessarily becoming a couple, guys, calm down, then that would make Ruby happy, fulfill her wish and make her fly high again. The same way she has flown in the hospital with Goro, with the same spark and aura she had back then. Ruby would forget about avenging her mother and sensei and would enjoy her life. Now what the crow says next, that it would be a bad move, that it is a failure caused by his naivety, he isn't cut out for revenge, it would be easier for him if Ruby hated him. All of this is also about his revenge. The reason for that is because Aqua planned to go down with whoever killed Ai, in this case Kamiki, and leave Ruby to enjoy her life safely. But now that she knows he's Goro and is super attached to him, it only makes it harder for him to commit his plan. Therefore, revealing his identity to Ruby was a mistake considering his revenge. That's also why the crow gives him a little sympathy. He knew it was a wrong choice, but he did it to ease his and Ruby's pain. Now it's interesting how it seems like the crow girl talks directly to Aqua in these panels, because at first glance it does look like a monologue, like the crow girl talks to the readers, but when you actually consider that Aqua went out on the balcony, notice the glass door separating him and Ruby, it makes more sense that the crow talked to Aqua instead. She has the same speech pattern as in chapter 118, where she also talked directly to Aqua. Also, Aqua dripping sweat in this panel implies that as well, which really makes me think that Aqua has been talking to this crow girl quite a lot off screen. Not necessarily responding back to her, but at least listening. And that kind of confirms that the crow girl is bent on revenge herself. Like she actively guides the twins towards revenge for a reason that isn't for the twins' benefit. And this is super interesting because now the allegiance of the crow girl is more shrouded in mystery than ever before. I mean, yes, she is guiding the twins towards revenge, but it seems more and more like they don't really want that revenge as much as the crow girl does. I'm really looking forward to see how this plot point develops. As for the next chapter, I don't think Ruby will push the promise onto Aqua. I think Aqua will switch the focus back on the movie or another thing entirely, because Ruby is still in the stages of development, and so she needs to sort out a lot of other things before she can return to this promise. But we'll see how it plays out in the next chapter.